nights that were trouble. They were a different kind of quiet, a nervous quiet, a dead quiet, the kind where even the forest shut up lest it disturb the dead. The truck's police radio crackled to life, a burst of garbled static like a cough drowning out distant whispers. Wilton picked up the handset, pressed the button. "Go for Jacobs." There was no response. He stared at the radio, waiting to see if there was another burst, turning up the volume a bit to see if there was anything behind the low hiss of the open channel. "Go for Jacobs." Nothing. Looked like it was going to be a quiet night. He stabbed out the butt of his cigarette in the ashtray before turning the key in the ignition. It was time to make the rounds. Twilight was only going to last so long. Father Jeremy Paddock hadn't always wanted to be a priest. The son of a North Atlantic fisherman, he spent his youth on trawlers drenched in frozen mist, the cold seeping in so deep it made his bones brittle. But when a long line went the wrong way, taking 3 fingers of his left hand with it, he was saddled with the choice between working below decks in the freezer or finding something else to do with his life. He always told people that at the end of the day he was happy he lost half a hand, because it was what brought him to God, that he was the very model of the Lord working in mysterious ways, that as he sat alone in the dark of the night in that hospital staring at half a hand, he started to ask God why, and God whispered back. He had a calling, and it took tragedy to find it. But now that he'd stood before his Maker, stared him in the eye and saw the breadth of his creation, Father Paddock would much rather have had his hand back. He stood in the back of the church, lighting candles that flickered weakly against the encroaching dark. Originally meant to be a dual-purpose church serving both Catholic and Protestant services, it was an odd building. Very mid-century, with sharp corners, aerodynamic flourishes, and a pulley and chain up front that could swap the crucifix for a standard Christless cross. But that pulley hadn't been pulled in years. Not since the Lutheran pastor had passed on and, lacking much of a flock anyway, was never replaced. Paddock himself had repeatedly asked for a transfer from his bishop, but every time he did, the answer came back, "No, you're needed there." He needed a sabbatical. He needed a new flock. He needed something other than a church in a dead town with a 7-member congregation, only 3 of whom ever bothered to attend Mass. Like everyone else, he hated Pine Hall Bluff. He just couldn't leave it. "Sheriff?" he said without looking up. He shuffled to the side, lighting another row of candles. "Padre," said Wilton, standing in the doorway, hat in hand. "You can come in, you know." "Doesn't feel right," he said. "What with me not being baptized and all." "It's a non-denominational church, Wilt. Colson Cole built it, not the parish, not God. You know that." "Yeah, but you blessed it and all." "I can baptize you, you know, if that'll make a difference." "Yeah, but then I've got to take all them classes, and you don't really hold them anymore." "I'll make an exception," said the priest, turning around. "You don't need the classes." "I'm not sure God will be all right with me skipping ahead of the line like that. And I'm not sure God cares much about any of that anyhow. To be honest, I'm beginning to think he doesn't care about much of anything at all." The sheriff nodded, understanding. Funny how the same bad thing can flip 2 people like us in completely different directions. Maybe there's no way to survive something like that without questioning everything. "And maybe it's just this fucking town," said the priest. "Maybe it just exists to destroy everything it surveys. Maybe it will just hollow us out until we're nothing, like we were the day everyone went down into that mine and never came back up." "Maybe," said Wilton. "So, how are you feeling about tonight?" "Pretty good. I feel like it's going to be quiet." "You sure?" "I'm sure it feels that way," said the sheriff. "Why? You got a bad feeling or something?" "Not as such, but I don't have a good feeling about it either." Wilton sighed.